All right, what's going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram. Link is in the box below. Week 4 picks of the 2024 NFL season. Another lousy week for me in week 3, 8-8. As man, I am not off to a good start. 26-22 on the season. Not what I had in mind by I need a better week. Only improved by one game. So I really took a look at these matchups for week 4, and I think this time I may have come to some good conclusions. And I'm just, going to go with my gut instinct, and I'm going to go with who I personally think has a better advantage. So let's not waste any more time. These are my week 4 picks, and let's get it on. Let's have a real good week this week, not 8-8. But let's get on to it, man. Start Thursday night football between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants going at it in New Jersey as the Cowboys are 1-2 on the season. They were getting demolished at home by the Ravens 28-6, but then Dallas actually made it a close game, 28-25. They just couldn't seal the deal on that one. And now they fly on over to Jersey to play the Giants, who are also 1-2, as they actually went into Cleveland and they beat the Browns 21-15. Despite the Giants fumbling the opening kickoff, they got it done over the Cleveland Browns. As I will say this about the Giants, even though I don't really trust them and pick them anymore, I will say this about the Giants. Malik Neighbors is a stud. That kid has a really bright future ahead of him, and I think he's going to be a really good receiver down the line. He had 2 great catches against the Browns, and I think that's the one positive that Giant fans can be hopeful for is Malik Neighbors. He looks like he's going to be a very good wide receiver. But let's be honest, guys, the Dallas Cowboys, they have just had their way with the Giants over the years, and I got that continuing. I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Giants to get back to 500, as I think the Cowboys are in a little bit of desperation mode right now. They're 1-2. And if they don't win this game, it's going to be hard for me to pick Dallas for probably the rest of the season because they have some tough games coming up, including our matchup the next week on Sunday Night Football against us. So this is a must win for the Cowboys right here. It's crazy to say a game against the Giants can probably make or break their season, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win it here to get back to 500. Now we got the Sunday afternoon slate of games. First up, we got the New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. This one is in Atlanta. The Saints are 2-1. They suffered a tough loss to the Philadelphia Eagles at home last Sunday, 15-12. They just could not stop Saquon Barkley at all in that game. I mean, the Saints, they held their own in that game against Philly, but like I said, Barkley was just too much for them. And then you take a look at the Falcons. They're 1-2. They also held their own against the Kansas City Chiefs. They gave the Chiefs a very good game on Sunday night in Atlanta, and the Falcons had a chance to win that game. If they just kind of went for it on that 4th down right there, not the one that Kansas City stopped them on, but like a bad questionable decision by Raheem Morris. And, say what you want about the defensive PI. I think Falcon fans have a legit gripe against that. But regardless, I think Kansas City was going to win, regardless if that got called or not. But, the Falcons, they look like they could be headed in the right direction. They need to finish off some of these games. So this matchup right here, I think for either team to win this game, they got to go run heavy in this game because Alvin Kamara has just been lighting it up for the Saints on offense this year so far. And if Bijan Robinson is to have a breakout game for the Falcons, I think this is the game to do it. I think you really need to get Bijan Robinson involved in this one for Atlanta here. The thing that concerns me most about the Falcons is that they're dealing with a lot of O-line injuries, and the Saints defense, that defense they got down there in New Orleans is no joke. They can definitely be physical on their defense right there. So that's definitely something right there. Plus, Kirk Cousins, not a mobile quarterback. He just doesn't fare well against very brute front sevens that are going to make him work in the pocket. And the Saints have that right there. So this one is very tough to decide because, on the other hand, Kirk Cousins has been playing well recently as he led a couple of really impressive drives for the Falcons, including their first one where they pretty much marched down the field and scored on the Chiefs to start off the game. And then, of course, you had the Monday night game a week ago against Philly where, off of that field goal that the Eagles gift wrapped them, Kirk Cousins marched down the field and won the game for Atlanta. So the Falcons, they do have some pop in their offense, and the Saints, they're definitely going to have to be on the lookout for that. I mean, the Saints offense got off to as red of a hot start as you can probably ask for. So there's definitely advantages for either team in this game. Plus, you consider the fact that both these teams play in domes, they play indoors. So really, home field doesn't play much of a factor as well in this one. So yeah, I'm really stumped on this one, man. So I'm going to do what I usually do in situations like this, and I'm going to go with the home team. So I will go with Atlanta. They are favored by 1.5 as I am recording this video. But, picks like these, I usually get wrong. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, whatever. But I'm going to go with the Falcons simply because they're the home team and because I think I may trust them a little bit more defensively. And I think that Bijan Robinson is just due for a breakout game, and I think he can get it going there. So despite the O-line injuries and despite that, you know, the things that the Saints have going for them, like I said, they struggled against Saquon Barkley. So if I'm the Falcons, I'm running Bijan Robinson in this one. I'm going to go Atlanta. Then we got the Los Angeles Rams and the Chicago Bears going at it in Chicago as the Rams, despite all the injuries that they had in that game against the San Francisco 49ers, the Bears came away, or the Rams came away with a win over the 49ers, rallying from two 14-point deficits, and they never led in the game until they hit what would be the game-winning field goal with 2 seconds left. So very valiant effort right there for the Rams. A much-needed win for them. They're 1-2 on the season still, but they do have a lot of injuries still, and you just don't know if they can pull off a comeback like that again. If I'm the Rams, I'm getting Kyron Williams involved in this game heavily right here because for as good of a defense the Bears have to start off this season, their rush defense is a little suspect. So if I'm the Rams, I'm going run heavy in this game as well. As for the Chicago Bears, they're also 1-2. They suffered a tough loss to the Colts on Sunday, but Caleb Williams had a really good game, the first good game of his career, in my opinion, where he threw for 360 yards and a couple of touchdown passes. But despite the effort that the Bears offense gave and despite the effort that the Bears defense gave, the Colts were able to pull away and get the job done over the Bears on Sunday. So really, it's a matchup of two teams that are kind of hopeful about each other, but I think the main difference is here is that while the Rams, they do have a potent offense, a lot of it is missing because a lot of their players are on IR. And the Bears, they're hopeful on offense as well, but A, they got to do something about that O-line because they're going to get Caleb Williams killed one day with that O-line. And B, they just need to execute better. However, the determining factor for me here, I think the Bears defense is better than LA's offense. So that's my takeaway right there. For that reason, I am going to go with the Chicago Bears to get the job done over the Rams here. I think the Bears are healthier coming into this game. Health is always a key factor. And I just think the Rams, they're just going to kind of be in for a little bit of a letdown with that win they had with the majority of their players being hurt against the 49ers. They're going up against a much healthier team this time. I like the Bears to get it done over the Rams here. Then we got the Cincinnati Bengals heading on down to Charlotte to play the Panthers. As the Bengals, they are 0-3. Cincinnati. Oh man, Bengals fans, your defense is garbage. You got absolutely carved up by Jaden Daniels and Washington's run game all night Monday night in front of your fans on primetime TV. And you're 0-3. Yes, I know Joe Burrow put up some nice stats and the offense put up some nice yardage, but that was mostly in garbage time with the Bengals down double digits and they weren't going to come back and win because they had no answer whatsoever for Washington's defense. And the Bengals are 0-3. Yes, I know they've gotten off to 0-2 starts with Zach Taylor and have made the playoffs. Now they're sitting at 0-3. The Bengals, every time they have started 0-3 in their franchise history, guess what? They missed the playoffs every time. The closest they came was 0-3 when they finished 8-8. So, Bengals, it's looking pretty bleak for you right now. I'm not saying you're completely out of it right now, but it is getting really, really difficult for the Bengals to have any kind of optimism right now. You take a look at their opponent, though, the Carolina Panthers. They are 1-2 on the season, and they went into Vegas and they just mollywopped the Raiders. Andy Dalton, former Bengal, getting the job done over the Raiders. And Carolina, a lot of people were saying that this was going to be an 0-17 team. Well, you can put that to bed right now. They're 1-2 on the season. I think the thing here is that the Bengals, they just like I know it sounds cliche and it sounds dumb, but the Bengals need to figure out what the hell's going on with their their defense. They need to stop. They need to come up with some big stops on defense because if they can't beat their former quarterback and if they let their former quarterback do what they did to the Raiders, it's going to be a long day for the Bengals no matter what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase do. So I'll be honest. I really want to pick the Panthers here to put the Bengals at 0-4, but I'm going to give the Bengals one last chance here. If the Bengals lose this game, I'm probably not going to be picking them for a long time. As much as I would love to see Carolina win, it's hard for me to envision this Panthers team winning 2 in a row. I think they're coming off just an emotional win over the Raiders, and they're coming back home and they're playing an offense that can definitely light them up on their defense. And the Bengals, they do have that kind of offense when they click together. So I'm going to go with the Bengals to get the job done over Carolina, although I would absolutely love it if the Panthers won this game. But yeah, I'm going to go Cincinnati here. Then we got my personal rivalry of the week, and this is one of my favorite rivalries of all time in the NFL. I always get a kick out of watching these two play each other. We got the Minnesota Vikings, the undefeated Minnesota Vikings at 3-0, heading to Lambeau to play the Cheeseheads, the Green Bay Packers, who are 2-1 on the season. Like I said, I always get a rise out of watching these two play. Mainly because I think this rivalry is way better than Bears-Packers. I'm telling you right now, I think Vikings-Packers blows Bears-Packers out of the water because what's a rivalry supposed to be? It's supposed to be competitive, right? Well, the Vikings, since Brett Favre went to Green Bay, the Vikings have been the only team in the NFC North that have given Green Bay legitimate problems. And they keep on doing it no matter how bad the Vikings are, no matter how good Green Bay is. The Vikings always are just a thorn in Green Bay's side. And this year, I think it's going to be more of the same. Minnesota is shocking everybody, myself included, as they just whipped up the Texans 34-7 on Sunday. Sam Darnold continues to just ball out. And I think one thing that a lot of people are not talking about with the Vikings is that Brian Flores is doing such a great job up there in Minnesota as their DC. They are just flourishing defensively. Like, seriously, this Vikings team is starting to remind me of the 2017 team a little bit. The only difference is that team didn't start off 3-0 because we beat them in week 2, I believe. But this Minnesota team, they are just, wow. They're looking dominant to start off the season. And the sky's the limit for them. Sam Darnold's playing like he has nothing to lose. Justin Jefferson is still a stud. And it's just such a breath of fresh air for a Vikings fan, considering the offseason they had. But then you got to take a look at the Packers. They're 2-1 on the season. They've won 2 in a row since dropping that tough game in Brazil to Philly in week 1. And Malik Willis, he's shown that he is a pretty solid backup for when Jordan Love comes in eventually. Speaking of Jordan Love, does he come back for this game? Personally, I think it may be in Green Bay's best interest to have Malik Willis start this game because Jordan Love was warming up at one point on the sideline against Tennessee, but you don't know for sure if he's 100% good to go, and you don't want to risk, further injuring or further sustaining an injury to your supposed franchise quarterback. So if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm starting Malik Willis in this game, and then we'll see how it is with Jordan Love. But, Green Bay's defense flourishing as well. This is going to be a really good defensive standoff right here, in my opinion. How about an 8-sack day for Green Bay on Sunday against the Titans? And Green Bay is also forcing turnovers here. So I think this game is going to be won by the team that can cause turnovers, and that's Green Bay, in my opinion. But the Vikings, if there's one thing that they've done well, it's protect the ball, and it's just eat up chunks of time and get chunks of yards right there. So, yeah, I mean, Green Bay's defense definitely is capable of stopping any kind of offense, but I don't know. This Vikings team is playing with a lot of heart and determination right now, and I think that Brian Flores' schemes are pretty much designed to take down any kind of offense, as that showed against the Texans. So, I do want to take Green Bay here because they are favored by 2.5. But I'm actually going to go with the Vikings to keep it rolling here. I think Minnesota goes to 4-0. This is not my upset of the week. I got another matchup in mind for that. But yeah, I like the Vikings. I like how they're playing so far. I like the physicality they bring. And I like that Sam Darnold has just all of a sudden become the underdog story in America right now. So, yeah, tough call. But I think I'm going to go with Minnesota to improve to 4-0. Give me the Vikings over the Packers. Next, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars going down to Houston to play the Texans. And to keep it short, I'm locking up the Texans this week. Jacksonville, in my opinion, they're looking like the worst team in the NFL right now. Typically, I know where a team is a third of the way into the season. So after week 6, I usually know where most teams are. But if you ask me right now who the worst team in the NFL is, it's easily Jacksonville. They are just so depleted right now. They got absolutely embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, 47-10. I mean, there's just nothing good to say about Jacksonville right now. Trevor Lawrence, people killed me when I said that Trevor Lawrence was overrated. Well, what do you think about him now? Throws another interception, can't lead the offense, and I'm saying it right now. If Jacksonville falls to 0-4, I think Doug Peterson's seat ought to be warming up a little bit. As for the Texans, Yeah, they had a terrible game against Minnesota. They got destroyed by them 34-7. But I think if there's one team that's due for a bounce back week this week, it's definitely Houston. I don't see them having two consecutive horrible weeks in a row, let alone against this Jacksonville team that just looks dead. Houston's my lock of the week. Texans over the Jags all day, man. All righty, now we got my matchup as we got the 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers heading over to Indianapolis to play the Colts, who are 1-2. Gonna try to keep this at a minimum because I want to get my preview out by the end of the week. So how about our Pittsburgh Steelers, man? We're 3-0. Justin Fields, very good game against the Los Angeles Chargers. The only bad thing I have to say is that he forced an interception. But other than that, I think Justin Fields played incredibly well. Took great care of the ball, kept it out of harm's way. His decision-making starting to get faster. His awareness is starting to improve. He's starting to, trust his instincts a little bit more. And of course, you see it when his reads are becoming more clear. You see it when he's not staring down guys. You see it when he's forming chemistry with some of the weapons that he has. And how can you not love that 55-yard touchdown by CA3 right there on that slant right there? Just a great play, great design altogether. I think Arthur Smith deserves a lot of credit for the play calling and for what that he's made the Steeler offense so far. We haven't been overwhelming anyone offensively, but what we have been doing is that we've been wearing down defenses, and we've been in such domination of ball control and time of possession that really, when you look at the offense, it's like, the Steelers don't have to overwhelm anyone on offense. If they can win the turnover battle, if they can win the time of possession battle, and if they can outgain you in yards, the Steelers are going to be a tough team offensively. Maybe not the best team offensively, but a tough team offensively. They have an identity for the first time in about 7 years with offense, man. You love to see it. As for the defense, how about this for a fact, guy? How about this for a stat, guys? The Steelers have allowed only 26 points on the season so far, and in each game, they've allowed 10 or fewer points. That's the first time since 1976. I researched this. The first time since 1976 where the Steelers had a stretch like this where they allowed 10 or fewer points in 3 or more consecutive games. And during that stretch in 1976, the Steelers had 5 consecutive games where they allowed 6 or fewer points, including 3 shutouts. Yeah, that legendary Steel Curtain defense. This defense is doing a really good imitation of it. Wow, man, it's just such a sight to behold as a Steeler fan. We held LA to -5 yards in the second half. J.K. Dobbins averaged 9 yards a carry, and we held him to 2.9 yards per carry on the day. Shut down LA's defense or running game when they were the league leaders in rushing through the first 2 weeks. Did the same thing against Atlanta a couple weeks ago in week 1. Now we're facing another run-heavy team in the Indianapolis Colts who relies so much on Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is Indy's best weapon, and I think the Colts definitely have to go run heavy here. But like I said, when our run defense is on, it's on. And you see what I mean by that against the Chargers. Anthony Richardson, I think he has a lot of upside to him. He's a dynamic runner as well. He's got really good arm strength, but his accuracy and his decision-making are very suspect, and I think that's our key to victory right there. If we can force turnovers on the Colts, and if we can just keep doing what we're doing on defense, just cause a ton of pressure, we're going to overwhelm the Colts there on defense. That's the thing the Steelers overwhelm you with is the defense. Sure, Highsmith is expected to miss this game, but man, did Nick Herbig step in, and man, is he a good substitute for Alex Highsmith, man. Nick Herbig just continues to make play after play after play whenever he's out on that edge, man. I love Nick Herbig, you know. And the Colts, I mean, their defense is good, but not great. It's definitely suspect, though. But the fatal flaw for the Colts here in this game, personally, they are severely, severely undermanned on defense. They have, I think, 3 or 4 players on defense that are on IR, and those are regular starters for them. So the Colts are really roughed up coming into this one. So, yeah, man, I mean, we could have scored 27 points against the Chargers because we converted, we got a first down under the 2-minute warning and we were at the goal line. But the Chargers were out of timeouts. They couldn't stop the clock. I think it was very selfless for the Steelers to just knee out, to just take knees and run out the rest of the clock. But we could have scored 27 if we really wanted to against the Chargers. So maybe this week we come away and we get maybe a 30-point game. I think if there's a 30-point game for the Steelers this season, this is the week to do it. We're favored by 2 coming into this game. And I think we can cover that easily. I'm going to go with our guys to get the job done and prove to 4-0. Like I said, the Colts, I'm not underestimating them. I think that they're a solid team. I just think that they're really roughed up coming in this game. But yeah, man, if you ask me if I thought the Steelers could cover a 2-point spread, I'll take that 2 all day. I think we can cover this game because we've won by 8, 7, and 10. So that's 20. That's 25 right there. On average, we win a game by about 8 points. I think we can cover that too. So yeah, this will be my spread for the week. I'm going to go with the Steelers to keep it rolling to improve to 4-0, 21-13. I'm going to give us our exact amount average right there, just about an 8-point win. So yeah, give me the Pittsburgh Steelers to improve to 4-0. Then we got the Denver Broncos taking on the New York Jets. This one is in New Jersey as the Broncos coming off a stunning win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bo Nix had a really good game, the first good game of his young career so far. And Denver, they shut out Tampa Bay basically on defense. So yeah, the Broncos, they are coming off, they're feeling high about themselves, and they're coming off a solid win against Tampa Bay, handing the Bucs their first loss of the season. So yeah, the Broncos, they're coming in with their heads held high a little bit, but they take on the New York Jets, who have won 2 consecutive games, and they're coming off a dominant 24-3 win over New England. Now, I will say this. Part of me thinks that Denver can actually win this game because I'll say this. If Bo Nix replicates what he did on Sunday and the Broncos defense shows up, because the Broncos defense is really Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what defense you're going to get with Denver. So if Bo Nix does what he did on Sunday and Denver's defense shows up, I actually think Denver has a really good chance of pulling off the upset here. But if you know this channel and if you know how these types of videos go for me, you probably know where I'm going with this one. I'm taking the New York Jets here. Why? Because the Jets last played on Thursday, and on top of that, they stay at home. The Jets don't got to go anywhere. They got 10 days of rest, and they have another home game. I typically, in most cases, about 9 times out of 10, I take the team that played on Thursday to win these type of games, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go with the Jets to beat the Broncos, but I do have Denver making it kind of a good game, but I'm going to take the Jets here. Then we got the Philadelphia Eagles heading on down to Tampa to play the Buccaneers, as the Eagles are coming off a win against the Saints, and they are 2-1 on the season. A nice rebound for them after that humiliating loss to the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football in week 2 for their home opener. as the Bucs are also 2-1. As I just mentioned, they got dominated at home by the Denver Broncos 26-7. Baker Mayfield did not have a good game against the Broncos, and Tampa just could not get anything going offensively. So, couple keys for this one. I think Philly, for their biggest chance to win this game, just keep doing what got you to a win in the first place, and that's feed Saquon Barkley. You know, the Saints, they had a ton of trouble stopping Barkley all day on Sunday, and Tampa with a defense that they lost a lot of key contributors to in the offseason. I think that is what's going to have to play in right there because Bo Nix did get it done on the ground against Tampa Bay. And I think with a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts and now Saquon Barkley in the mix, that's a big uh-oh right there if you're a Bucs fan. However, I think the Bucs can make this a solid game if Baker Mayfield can find his if Baker Mayfield can find his rhythm and he can find his groove. Because same story with Philly's pass offense, very suspect, very prone to giving up big plays. Plus, these two met in the regular season last year, and Philly won by double digits, but the Bucs were in the majority of that game, and then of course Tampa Bay blew them out in the playoffs. But I think the Eagles are going to come down to Tampa with a chip on their shoulder, remembering that wild card game they had against the Bucs. Now they seem more like, a team that got their identity back. And I think overall, I really don't know which Baker Mayfield we're going to get and which Bucs offense we're going to get. But I'm going to go with the hotter hand here and say the Eagles go down to Tampa and beat the Buccaneers. I think Philly just has a couple more things going for them in this game. Like I said, with Saquon Barkley and, maybe getting A.J. Brown back for this game. While the Bucs, I don't know. If they got dominated by the Broncos like that and they can't stop the run, it's going to be a long day for them. So I'm going to go Philly to beat Tampa Bay and improve to 3-1, hand the Bucs their second straight loss potentially. Then we got a very interesting game coming on up. We got the Washington Redskins going to Arizona to play the Cardinals. This is my trap game of the week, as you just heard. Washington is 2-1. As I mentioned earlier, what a night for Jaden Daniels, man. What a night for him. 21-23, 254 yards, and a couple of touchdowns in a game that featured no punts and no turnovers at all. The first time that's happened since 1940. Wow. So a historic game on Monday night in Cincinnati. So there you go right there. Jaden Daniels, he continues to show everyone why he might just be the best QB in the draft. So yeah, great game for Jaden Daniels. However, Washington does have a little bit of their Washington does have a little bit on their hands as they're on a short week and they travel to the West Coast to play the Cardinals, who stay at home for a third consecutive week. The Cardinals lost a tough one to Detroit 20-13, and if there's anything that the Cardinals have shown us is that they're never truly out of a game. They have been very competitive in their games that they've played in going back to last season. Like I said, they're no strangers to upsets. They can definitely pull off an upset or two on a season. And I think Kyler Murray and Marvin Jr. are definitely going to be the main catalysts for this offense going forward. James Conner, definitely a big contributing factor right there. So, what do I have to say? For as great of a win that was for Washington on Monday night, they did allow some big plays by the Bengals. And now they're going up against Kyler Murray and that offense that I think is very underrated, in my opinion. So I think Jaden Daniels, he's probably going to have to replicate close to what he did on Monday night. And I think everyone's going to be waiting to see how he follows up with it. But going up against now a more experienced quarterback and another explosive offense, I don't know if Washington's defense is going to be able to maintain that, and we're going to see how Jaden Daniels can respond to that. So I really want to pick Washington here, but I am actually going to go with the Cardinals. I do think Arizona is more than capable of pulling off this game here because, like I said, they can definitely click on offense, and they have been very competitive in the games that they've been in. You know, Washington, if they allow the plays to Arizona that they allowed against Cincinnati, it's going to be a tough battle for Jaden Daniels. But I have confidence in him. I have confidence in Washington's offense. I have confidence in their ground game. But overall, I just think the Cardinals have more advantages going for them in this game. So for those reasons, with them staying home and Washington being on a short week, I'm going to go with the Cardinals to beat Washington to get both teams to 500 at 2-2. Then we got the New England Patriots flying on out to San Francisco to play the 49ers. As the Patriots are 1-2, they got embarrassed in New Jersey by the Jets 24-3 last Thursday. And despite them having a 10 days rest, as I mentioned with my Jets intro earlier, typically I tend to go with the team that played on Thursday because they had, extra rest. And honestly, I was very close to picking New England in this one. I heavily considered taking the Patriots here. Why is that? Well, not just because of the rest factor and them having last played on Thursday, but get a load of this for the 49ers. Hargrave out for the season for them. Big, big blow for their defense. CMC is flying to Germany to see a specialist. And George Kittle is questionable to come back as well. And now, as if that can't get any more concerning for the 49ers, Brock Purdy is unknown for this game as well. He's dealing with back soreness. So, as if the 49ers couldn't possibly get any more injured, they do. Not only did they lose that game to the Rams in the injury bowl, but now it's looking like 2020 all over for them again, where they were injured to hell and back. Now, granted, in that 2020 season, the 49ers got healthier as the season progressed, and that probably could be the case this season as well. So I'm not ready to fully give up on San Francisco just yet because at least it's early in the season. And as the season progresses, they could get the status of some of these players and they could potentially get some of them back. But I think, wow, 10.5 as I'm recording this video right here. I think that's way too much for San Francisco. I don't know, man. Like I said, I was heavily considering taking New England for my upset here. But regardless, I think I'm still going to go with the 49ers because they still have lots of playmakers on their team. They still have a good defense, but it's really going to miss Hargrave, if you ask me. Whereas New England, they're just really depleted on offense. Yeah, their defense is still pretty strong, they probably could take advantage of playing a roughed up Brock Purdy. Maybe they could even be seeing Brandon Allen in this game. I don't know, but I don't know. I can't trust New England. I can't trust myself to pick New England to win a game. So I'm going to go with the 49ers, but if San Francisco loses this game, man, they're in trouble. They got a tough stretch of games coming up. So kind of like the Cowboys, this is a must win for the 49ers, in my opinion, right here. And I think they respond to it. I'm going San Francisco to win this one. Then we got the Cleveland Browns flying on out to Vegas to play the Raiders, as both teams are coming off absolutely embarrassing performances. The Browns lost at home to the Giants, despite the Giants fumbling the opening kickoff and the Browns scoring on the very next play Deshaun Watson got sacked into oblivion by the Giants defense, and they had no answer whatsoever for a rookie receiver in Malik Neighbors. Cleveland's defense is starting to look very suspect, and that was the thing that carried the Browns last season. Their defense has not gotten off to a good start. And the cherry on top of that, guess what? Myles Garrett got an MRI because he got roughed up in the Giants game, and his status for this game is questionable. So if Myles Garrett misses this game for Cleveland, they're in big trouble. They're already at 1-2, and they're already tied with Baltimore for second. Then you take a look at the Raiders. They laid an absolute goose egg at home against the Carolina Panthers of all teams in their home opener, where you'd have thought Andy Dalton was in his 2015 season form against them. Just absolutely embarrassed at home by the Panthers. However, the one thing that I do consider for this matchup right here is how teams respond. And for the Browns, while they had chances to to score on the Giants, they just couldn't cash in on them. And the Raiders, I mean, sure, they lost by 14, but don't let that score fool you. A lot of that came in garbage time when the game was out of reach. And the Raiders had a bad loss in week 1 against the Chargers, but then they go on the road and beat the Ravens. Same can be said about the Browns, as they went on the road in week 2 after a bad home loss to start off the season at Dallas, and they beat Jacksonville. Which win am I more impressed with? The Browns beating possibly the worst team in the NFL right now in Jacksonville and barely beating them at that? Or the Raiders erasing a 10-point deficit against the Ravens and spoiling their home opener? Yeah, I lean towards the latter, and that's why the Raiders are my upset of the week. I'm taking the Raiders to upset the Browns. I cannot trust the Browns. I do not trust myself picking them to win a game this year, maybe unless it's against the Bengals, because that's really the only time the Browns ever look good is when they play the Bengals. But I think the Raiders, they respond better to adversity than the Browns do this season. And I think the Browns just have too much going for them internally where you don't know what's going to take the feel for them. So I'm actually going to go with the Raiders to pull off the upset over the Cleveland Browns here. Then we got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. This one is in LA, as the Chiefs are 3-0 and they beat the Falcons 22-17 on Sunday Night Football. Controversial ending once again, as you know, like I said in my Saints Falcons take, I think Falcon fans have a legitimate gripe on that no defensive pass interference call, but regardless, I think the Chiefs would have won either way. They haven't really exploded on offense yet, which is kind of surprising. And Kansas City's defense has been pretty much been carrying the load, but I think the Chiefs are definitely due to break out on defense or on offense. Why? They're playing the Chargers, who are 2-1, and they didn't just lose to us on Sunday, but they got roughed up as well. Derwin James is suspended for an unsportsmanlike conduct against us. Joe Alt is questionable for this game, and Justin Herbert re-aggravated an ankle injury that he had going into the game against us. So, a lot of big casts for the Chargers going into this one. And like I said, with them being roughed up on defense and them being uncertain on offense, it's just not going to have that same vibe that Mahomes versus Herbert has had in years past. I'm going to go Kansas City to improve to 4-0. I think if Travis Kelce is to have a breakout game because he's been quiet to start off the season, I think this is the week to do it. Travis Kelce, he has had some great games against the Chargers, and LA has just had no response from him. I expect that to continue. I'm going to go Kansas City to improve to 4-0. Sunday Night Football, check your local listings as we got quite a dandy right here. The Buffalo Bills going to Baltimore to play the Ravens, as the Bills are still undefeated at 3-0, and they just absolutely skinned the Jacksonville Jaguars alive on Monday Night Football, 47-10. Josh Allen playing like an MVP candidate so far. The Bills' offense is as potent as it has been it may even be more potent now, despite Stephon Diggs not being there anymore. And the Bills just look like an unbeatable machine and a juggernaut on offense right now. Buffalo's just off to a great start. And, as a Steeler fan, I'll say this. The one team in the AFC that concerns me the most, it is the Bills. I mean, sure, Kansas City may be the team to beat always because of Patrick Mahomes, but the Chiefs look off to start off the season. I do expect them to pick it up as the weeks go by, but right now, Kansas City doesn't really worry me all that much. I really don't fear anybody in the division. I'm telling you that right now. I am not scared of anyone in the division. AFC South, beatable. Sure, CJ Stroud is good, and the Texans do have explosive offensive fire pieces, but the Texans, they're beatable. That showed against Minnesota. But the one team in the AFC that really concerns me that I would not want to face right now are the Buffalo Bills. And that game and the way they've started just completely justifies it. The Bills are just a well-oiled machine on offense right now. And then you got to take a look at the Ravens. They are 1-2. They had a 28-6 lead on the Cowboys, and they only won by 3. It would have been hilarious. I'm telling you, as a Steeler fan, it would have been hilarious to watch the Ravens blow that lead against the Cowboys and lose for the second consecutive week. This time it would have been a 22-point lead they would have blown. So the Ravens, they got very lucky in Dallas. I'm just saying that right now. They got very lucky in Dallas. If they blow this kind of lead against Buffalo, they're not going to get so lucky because the Bills, they are built to put up a lot of points on the board. They are built to put up a ton of yards, and they can rally from a deficit. It hasn't happened so far, but the closest one to it was in week 1 against Arizona, where the Cardinals played them tough the entire game, and then the Bills won it in the end, and they fought back. And against a Ravens team that is just prone to choking over the past couple of seasons, that spells disaster. The Ravens, if they get a lead in this game, they better hold on to it. You take a look at Derrick Henry. He had his first great game as a Raven, and maybe some of their, maybe Lamar can get it going again. I don't know. But if you ask me right now who the better and more defined offense is, it's definitely the Buffalo Bills. Plus, the Bills, their starters did get a little bit of rest as they got pulled out of the game when it was well out of reach for Jacksonville, and you knew that the Bills were going to win either way. So Buffalo starters did get a little bit of extra rest, and I expect them to pick up the pace again. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills to go to 4-0. The Ravens, I love it, man. The Ravens are just off to a really bad start, and they cannot afford to get in a big deficit against Buffalo and have the Bills force Lamar to take shots down the field. And they especially cannot blow a lead like they did against Dallas. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills, man. 2 Monday Night Football games once again. As first up, we got the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins down in Miami. If you remember last year, this game was also on Monday Night Football. The Titans had that crazy comeback against the Dolphins. But this time, Tua Tagovailoa is not going to be in this game as he's still on IR. And now even more quarterback questions going out, getting out there for the Dolphins. Skylar Thompson, he got hurt against the Seahawks, and he's questionable for this game. So really, who do the Dolphins start at quarterback in this game? Do they go Tyler Huntley, or do they try and find another backup quarterback in the next couple of days. A lot of question marks with Miami. And even Tennessee, they really don't have an identity at quarterback because Will Levis has been costing them all three of their games. Tennessee's 0-3, but Tennessee could have like 2 wins if Will Levis didn't have 8 giveaways on the season. Will Levis is terrible, man. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Will Levis sucks. But I will say this, Tennessee's defense does play really tough, and I think they can take advantage of the Dolphins having a severe identity crisis at quarterback right now. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the Titans to win their first game. It's hard for me to trust Tennessee. I am constantly hitting that snooze button with the Titans because everyone told me not to sleep on them. Well, how do you justify the first 3 weeks of the season? They're 0-3. They lost 3 very winnable games, in my opinion. So I think Tennessee will win here. But I'm telling you, if Tua was healthy and the Dolphins' offense was potent, I'm taking Miami all day. But for this matchup, I'm going to take the Titans. And then concluding week 4, we got the second Monday night game. And what a way to go out. This is my personal game of the week. Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions going at it in Ford Field. The Seahawks are 3-0. They're one of the remaining unbeaten teams as they found a way to remain undefeated as they pulverized the Dolphins 24-3. But I will say this about the Seahawks. They did have a little bit of trouble in a few of the games that they played in this, to start off the season. Sure, they beat up on the Dolphins, but let's be honest, if Tua was healthy in that game, I expected the Dolphins to put up a much better fight. But regardless, they're 3-0, but they're taking on a Lions team that's 2-1, that's definitely capable of putting points on the board. And like I said, if there's one thing the Lions do very well in the Dan Campbell era, it's that they respond to adversity and they remain resilient. They had a really tough win against the Cardinals last Sunday. Now they fly on back home with extra rest to take on the Seahawks. The Seahawks did win the last 2 games against the Lions by beating them at their own game, which is outscoring them. But I think now the Lions know what happened last year when the Seahawks beat them in overtime. Plus, Seattle struggled against New England earlier in the season. And with the Lions not wanting to drop a second straight home game, I think that's going to be in store right there. I'm going to go with Detroit. I think they can expose Seattle's defense here. I think Dan Campbell is definitely going to get these guys up, ready, and motivated. Not to say the Lions haven't had issues because of that week 1 game. They had a 17-3 lead against LA, and then they beat the Rams in overtime, and then they dropped it to Tampa Bay in week 2. But if you ask me who I trust more on offense right now and who I trust more as a whole, it's Detroit. I think, if you're going for over-under in this game, I would definitely take the over. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game here. Eye candy for the NFL fan. But I think this is where Seattle drops their first game of the season. I'm going to go with the Lions to win a very high-scoring game over the Seahawks. That'll do it. Those are my Week 4 picks of the 2024 NFL season. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And this is Mac checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.